we said that you cannot predict the future,
Yes.
and we had a lot of discussions how dangerous latency is, or how dangerous it is if someone else is faster or knows where the market goes or knows where the ball lands. So radar can alert you that there is something, but it cannot fix it. So the only way to fix latency abuse is to be fast. Same with your feet. If someone is directly next to the table and need to bet there, then there is no trick, no cheating. And that's the same for brokerage. I went to Australia, I talked with a few bigger brokers, and we had a lot of discussions about latency. The only way is you need to be fast. But latency costs you money every day as a broker.
Welcome to the Financial Frontiers podcast. My name is Dinos. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this channel. It helps us create more content and deliver more episodes for you.
All right, here we are, another session on the Financial Frontiers. It's been a busy month, actually, because of the expo. My guest today, I'm very humble to have Dennis Weissert.
Yeah, Dennis Weissert.
Dennis Weissert from iSAM. We're going to have a discussion here around, our domain of expertise, primarily risk management, technology in the industry. Dennis, thank you very much for your time. Please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Give us your background. Let's get into a discussion here for our audience.
Thank you for having me. I watch your channel and I like what you do, and we know each other for a while, so very happy to be here. So about me, I started in the industry, I think 15, 16 years ago in a bank in Germany. Then I worked for a broker, Prime of Prime, and I went to a tech provider, fintech provider. Spent 8 years, 7.5 years there as managing director, operations and client success, and joined in January iSAM Securities. We are a tech provider and a market maker, liquidity provider. So I would say I did the full circle. I was on the dealing desk. I did the Excel spreadsheets. I spent the night shifts. I saw the Trump election on the desk. I saw the Brexit on the desk. So interesting times. On the technology, I was happy to get more knowledge. We talked about this in the past. Seeing not one broker, seeing hundreds of brokers with different strategies, how they do and what their approach to the market is. And now I have liquidity, I have technology. So up to something big.
Good. Yeah, that is experience. I know the details here, the companies that you've worked at, starting obviously, as you mentioned, from dealing desk. So that's, working through your way, I guess, along important points of stopping points, let's call it, of how the flow of an order goes. So, the dealing desk obviously managing the broker's book, essentially. And the solutions that you were using, although you didn't have, I guess, back then much experience on how those were built, you were doing what was necessary for the dealing function using those tools. Then obviously moving to the technology provider where you saw how these tools are built. And then, these tools that connect obviously liquidity providers and feed it to the broker, which the dealing desk then takes and manages. And then now you've moved on to the liquidity side and then I guess risk management tools there. So Dennis, give us based off of your experience, and let's walk through starting from your days as dealing desk, right? What would you say is the biggest challenges that a broker faces when it comes to the dealing function of the business? Because, we have different parts that play a role here. One is, there's traders that are obviously, they're placing their trade, investments with the scope of making money. And then obviously the broker is there to facilitate that trade, and a good broker is, going to take on that risk whether they see it necessary, and then pass it on if they, based on how they manage their risk. So, I mean, you can get into as much detail as you want in terms of that function, but what would you say is the biggest challenge that a broker faces on the dealing function?
So back in my days, and also what I have seen during my career, if you're a big broker, you handle a lot of retail end client, a lot of retail end clients who are placing a lot of orders. So I think it's the size which is the biggest challenge. Let's say you have a alerting system. Let's go further back. You want to look at the trades, the trade size, the exposure. The bigger you get, the more work is to be done. And having the knowledge and the human capital and the team, this gets a challenge that you grow and your client base grows, and it's hard to keep up with senior stuff and with doing the trading and the risk function in general. So I understand why some brokers outsource certain functions, or even adding value by adding other providers. If you have a alerting system and you cannot just not catch up with looking at each alert and investigating each alert, then the alerting system is nice, but it doesn't help you if you cannot catch up with your team. Or you have 20 plus MT servers, then who monitors them? I had 9 screens back in the days. If you have a chart and a manager and an administrator running, no, you don't need so many administrators. Let's say you have a manager and some charting of the platform running for each server. How do you monitor 20 servers on 9 screens? So software comes in and other team members outsourced solutions. So the biggest challenge is the size, I would say.
As the broker gets bigger, more servers get added. And then consolidation is, I guess, the biggest challenge there. And you're saying that there are third-party solutions that exist. So you mentioned notifications. What kinds of notifications were coming through? Let's, like, for example, because when we talk about the dealing function, I look at it from the outside. I understand it to a certain point theoretically. And so, this is also for me. Like, I'd like to know what are the things that you're looking at. What is the dealer looking at in terms of managing the broker's risk, and what kind of notifications were coming through for you to correctly mitigate the exposure of a broker?
There are so many things, and so many things need to be handled at a different time. My dealing desks are quite a while ago, but simple examples, swaps. So you want to check that the swaps are up to date. You want to check that the swaps are having the right value. And that's a task which needs to be done every day. And this, you can just not miss this. But you can do this once a day, so that's not time critical. Some brokers giving protection if the account runs into minus, and regulatory protection. So you want to check everyone who runs into minus, negative balance protection. Was this abuse, or was this a market move? So there's a big market move, and now you need to check maybe 10 accounts if you're a smaller broker, maybe 100 if you're bigger, and then you need to check 1,000 accounts. And that needs to be done before you want to process the withdrawal. But you want to process the withdrawal very fast because you want to have a reputation in the business, and you do not want to have clients thinking that you do not withdraw. So that's more time sensitive, and withdrawal can maybe take a day. Some brokers do immediate withdrawal, and now you have a market move and certain volume, and you see that your risk exposure getting maybe higher than your regulation allows you, or you just don't want to take the risk, and then you need to act immediately. Now you are there and prioritizing what do I need to do first, what can be done before end of day, and back to the scalability, to the size. What do I sign? What do I do now? What does the other team in the other time zone? And this is Excel. I use a lot of Excel myself, but some things are just not possible in Excel in a timely manner.
Of course, because it's there's export, import, load. Sometimes the Excel file's too big, it delays.
Let me add something here. So the Excel files got too big back in my days before we had something custom built for us. So I had two PCs. One, I did certain report, started the calculation, turned around to another PC to continue working because the thing was freezing for like 30 minutes to do the report. So this is what I'm talking about, scalability. They are good solution, and it doesn't have to, there wasn't an issue to could have done this, attacked this smarter, maybe a little bit earlier. But yeah, the scalability, the size is, I think, the challenge.
Yeah, I remember that company you were working at, and they had these beautiful offices on the coast, right on the edge in Limassol, looking at that beautiful view. So I guess that might have been a stress reliever for you if you were on the day shift, right?
Yeah.
Then you moved on to the tech provider, which is one of the biggest ones in the industry, as you mentioned, 200-300 brokers. And as we discussed in our coffee before here, being in a company like that puts you in a position to exponentially learn so much about the industry, because you're looking at so many different brokers and their different pain points, different models, different business goals, whatever it is. And it's a good place to be in here, because in terms of understanding this industry,
Correct.
that gives you a lot of access. And we spoke about niches in services and what to outsource, what not to outsource. So, I mean, let's run through your experiences there, because I think that was maybe the larger portion of your professional career, or
Yeah. So I'm a very loyal person. I stay at the prime of prime, I think around 6 years. The last job I did 7.5 years, and I hope I found a place where it looks like I found a place where I can spend the next 7-8 years. So, larger portion of my professional career in this field was at the fintech provider. That's correct.
Yeah, and so you've went through, I guess, a lot of maturity that company went through. You experienced that, and that tech provider was what we normally refer to as a liquidity bridge.
Yep.
Right. Let's talk about a liquidity bridge. And we've discussed this. I have had this discussion with the different people on this podcast. Everybody has got their own version, a description of what a liquidity bridge is. I'd like to hear yours.
Oh, wow. Now back to the roots. Explain what it actually is.
Yes.
I should have prepared something like this better in my life in general, because when I in the past had to explain what I actually do to people outside of the industry, it's pretty difficult.
Yes.
if you are hardly able to explain your job or what the company is doing. Let me try this. So liquidity bridge is the heart and the core of what takes care that your front-end trading platform, which faces the retail clients, where the clients can trade and helps you to monetize certain flow, helps you to offset certain risk, and to manage how you want to handle risk and flow and executions. And then this is depending on what software you use, what liquidity bridge you're using. There are then different quality difference on what feature sets and how many connections and how many tools are at your fingertips to make informed decisions and to, I would say, earn your money.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on different things there, what the liquidity bridge does. And, when we talk about manage your risk, most of the times these solutions don't have it's not a risk management tool.
That's correct.
You need to know where to look and what to look for to offset that risk.
Yeah, you're right. So you add a valid point there, which was misleading in what I said. You do not get the insight of how you manage your risk in a bridge. That's where the risk tools are coming in, or someone very smart. But yes, you use the liquidity bridge to decide how you handle your risk and where you offset your risk.
And I guess in your current position at iSAM, that's what you've got. These are two different products that iSAM's got, right? So it's one risk management system and another liquidity. Is there a liquidity bridge solution that iSAM has?
Yes, that's correct. So I'm taking care of the technology in iSAM Securities, and there are two main pieces to this. One is the radar risk dashboard, and the other one is the Apex liquidity bridge. We're famous as liquidity provider and market maker, but I'm taking care of the technology. So yes, and these are separate products. So if someone just want to use the risk tool, that's fine for me. If someone just needs a liquidity bridge, that's good. So there is no need, that doesn't need to be connected together to work. These are standalone solutions.
Okay, so I mean, back to the tech provider that you were at before, which was a liquidity bridge. Handling so many brokers, right? What would you say is how do you do that, right? How do you manage so many brokers? When you're a tech provider, there's so many requests that are coming through, and in terms of handling the pipeline for dev work that's required. Walk us through that, because when you were there, were you part of the dev side? No, you said you were managing director over here in the Cypriot office, right?
So I took care of the operations part and client success, which is the account management part. So to your questions about dev, for example, the team was responsible to understand what is needed in the industry, to be in touch with clients, and then formulate this request before it goes to dev or before it goes to review. So a lot of clients, if you have multiple clients, everyone has their bespoke idea how a feature should work or what they would love to have. So before this can be assessed, and if you want to build this, does it make sense? Is this a valuable product, or is this just an idea and maybe you do not agree with the idea? So the team was responsible of understanding the request, understanding the need, writing stories, describing what it's supposed to do, how it should work, and what is the value added. And then this was reviewed in the company and then programmed. I personally cannot program. I think I did Hello World back in my days. But this is as far as it goes. I have a lot of respect for programmers. They do magic somehow.
Yeah, you need to be in the zone. You need to block off everything, and hours go past. I'm not a programmer myself, just some basic Python. But even that basic Python, when I wrote a few little programs, hours go past, and you think it's 10 minutes. When you're really in the zone. And I think that's a luxury. It's a luxury that I personally don't have. I cannot just do one.
Same.
Right. So I know that one of the biggest challenges with fintech providers, these tech providers, such as the ones you were working at before, and many in the industry, one of the biggest challenges is this transition from 24/5.5 market before crypto to a 24/7. Because, and especially around DevOps, where you can't have downtime, right?
Yeah.
But systems need maintenance.
Yeah.
Do you have any feedback from that? How were you, at least during the time you were there, and perhaps even now at iSAM, how are you handling that, facilitating, ensuring that uptime is consistent, even during weekends for brokers that have crypto?
So interesting question. And back to the days in the past where this, I remember the days where I was in Cyprus, it was midnight on Friday, the market closed, and you can just relax because whatever you have on the book in one or the other direction, you're confident it turns next week, and 2 days where you can just not change anything. So stop thinking. And then crypto came. And then some liquidity providers tried to do 24/7 FX, which failed miserably, in my opinion. But could be interesting as a thought. So, yeah. And then it changed. And you just always in stress in dealing this. And there's always risk. And I know friends in the industry who handling the dealing desk still, and they have their laptop around when they do their weekend, and they can never switch off. And I hope they don't burn out and they get valued. So on the tech side, it's simpler to have technology continually running. It's a big challenge to have the team and the seniors and the people, and you have the smart people who work very hard 5 days and over hours, and then you ask them, how about the weekend? And you don't want them to run away or shout at you. Yeah. So that's something I guess you're facing as well, to how do I balance life and work, especially for seniors who have all the knowledge, and you need them all the time, and you need them on a call, and do you take your work phone with you all the time? So on the technical side, it's more strategy. So I remember back in the days that things were just kept running and hoped for the best. In iSAM Securities, we do a very different approach, since we have the luxury to do a lot of things new and from the scratch, and we have the money and the motivation to change something. You can find solution if you look really hard. There are multi-solutions, multi-cloud solutions where we give you different resiliency, where there are different data centers. So you do need to do maintenance, but if you can flip a machine from one data center to another, you can do maintenance and then you flip back. And I think it's a money solves the issue and strategy. So you need to talk to the right people who give you the right insight, and then you need to be willing to pay. My experience from the past is, if something is not good enough in technology, then it's often because you try to stay too much in a small budget. That's my feedback. Everyone makes a mistake, and black swan event or something, there can always something happen, but you can reduce this to you should target 100% uptime.
100%. And yeah, you rightly said we have this challenge as well. And as in DGM Tech Solutions, our approach is this hope for the best scenario. It doesn't work out well, because it's one thing so budget for sure. The first thing that we do is we recommend to the broker, whatever you have in terms of infrastructure that's running your operations, that works on its own and is all good, even if the provider provides an SLA of whatever it is, 99.9% uptime.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what that is. These are systems, They can drop. There's hardware, fans spinning, or things heat up.
Moving parts, you're
There's
right.
moving parts. And so these things, there's wear and tear. It's very real. And so whatever that cost is, even though technically you can go, you can run and people can trade on one infrastructure, you need the exact same X2 times 2, whatever that cost is, duplicate that infrastructure.
Yes.
Finished. Now there's workarounds, around cloud where you can put a smaller sized machine and then synchronize, and then only if it's needed you increase the machine. But what you're essentially doing there is you're adding more manual work. In the event where it fails over, you need to increase the machine. Now you need to wait for it, and what if it doesn't do it properly? And so 100%. 2 parallel systems running consistently, and whatever the cost is that's needed, just look at it as that is the cost. Don't look at half of it and say, I can be operational with half that cost, because you that's not the right approach. So that's one thing, budget. And then it's obviously the strategy, as you mentioned. And, and the 24/7. How do you work with the 24/7? Well, what we're doing is there's a roster, different people working on different time shifts. You know what you need to do. If it's your night shift, that was expected. You rested during the day, whatever it is. And for sure have that, well, I liked how you put that term, flip the switch. So it's got to be as easy as that. You're working on one infrastructure, flick it, and it's working on another. And it's got to be that easy.
You speak from my heart. I want to add 2 more things. I get excited. So about flick the switch, that's a nice term, and it should be even better. So the solution is that the retail end client doesn't know he was failed over, that there was nothing in between, because everything is up, everything is in parallel, and this is the quality you want to provide at 100%. Yes, someone needs to make a decision in the end to change, but the retail client should not experience downtime on his side. And this is important. Now about, you talked about the cost and the different locations and the night shift, and that you do not treat your failover system as half the resources for half the money and hopefully fine. This applies to everything. If you have a huge broker or whatever size of broker, and your live system runs at 80%, that's already too tight. But let's say your live system runs at 40% of the resources you have. And then you have half of the system on a backup. That means you're in a red zone, deeply in a red zone if you fail over. And the same with people, offices. If you have offices in different time zones or night shift, and you treat them as second-class offices, as satellites, then when they are active, like the backup system is active, then they are not the quality, and then that's not the 24/7, because the retail client on the other side of the world couldn't care less if this is night or day in Cyprus. He needs the best experience. So the time zones, the failover, you need to treat this all as it needs to be in place to the needs of the broker. And the damage you are causing by you're on a failover system, or there is an issue for an hour, brokers can lose more money in an hour than you and me can earn in a lifetime.
100%.
Not insulting you. I just mean there is money in place.
Yeah,
which
I mean a broker could, it can go to infinity.
Yes.
And on 1 hour is massive. I mean, even define a perfect storm, your downtime, and there's a black swan event, and the positions entered in before the black swan event, and now it's down. I mean, you could really, as what happened in 2015, where really big, strong brokers collapsed.
Yeah, and this is the black swan event. Different situation. it should just not happen because you failed over for maintenance and then you're an hour down. This is just a
Yes.
different thing. Nothing is perfect in the world, and we're all learning every day. Don't try to be cheap.
100%. You're dealing with people's money at the end of the day, and it's a big responsibility. And we talk about terms like we say flick the switch. The work that goes behind being able to flick that switch, there's a lot of work there. Right?
And now something which I'm sure you know as well. It's a very interesting situation of flick the switch to one location, but flicking the switch back is way more difficult and way more complicated. So failing over is, we have a failover system in place here, or we have a backup system. That's nice, but then there comes the next step, going back to the live system. That should not interrupt, especially not if you're on a weaker system and your backup system. So there goes a lot of work into. Well,
good. So let's talk about iSAM now a little bit here, Dennis. We have, as we know, iSAM. Well, it's iSAM Securities.
Correct. Yes.
And one of the bigger liquidity providers that exist in the industry. Top 3, I don't know. Could it be? Is there such a list of who is the top?
Not in. So let's say it this way. There's definitely a list in my head when I looked where I want to go. So I had the luxury of seeing multiple brokers and seeing which liquidity providers they are using and why are they using them. So without being an expert in liquidity and market making, I just knew their reputation I knew who was working with them. So, if you trust your best friend and your best friend said, that's a really good guy, I know him forever and I trust him, you will not be fooled, hopefully. And if 10 or 12 of your good friends telling you the same. So that's how my list in my head came up. And then the work iSAM did to become a market maker, which puts it in a very unique place to create their own price. And if you have your own price, then you're more flexible and you can work better with brokers together. So if I put a number on the list, then that will be challenging. For me, it's number 1.
Good. Okay. And so iSAM Securities is the liquidity side of the things, and then we have, is it called iRisk, or what is it called, the risk product?
It's all under the same umbrella, so there is no different name. The products have different names, but it's iSAM Securities.
iSAM Securities again. And what's the name of the risk product?
The risk product is called Radar, and the bridge is called Apex.
Got it. Let's talk about the risk management solution. And I'll give you a bit of my background, my experience around the risk management side of things. So, obviously being in the industry, serving the brokers on platform administration, this comes up a lot. Like, what are we doing with risk? What is the dealing desk doing, and what tools do they need? A lot of them still, even to today, are using Excel, big clunky Excel files, right? And so I'd started a side project. Initially, this one was to develop a risk management tool.
Which is a logical consequence. You see all of this and you know this can be done better.
But it's not my main area of focus, right? The main area of focus of DGM is the platform administration, unbiased, working with third-party solutions, understanding them well and connecting them properly. But in terms of a proprietary solution, this was a parallel back burner project.
Yeah,
I came to realize that project, in terms of being back burner project, I would never be able to create. It needs to be your main focus, and you need a lot of development work, because the complexity required around proper risk management solutions is quite detailed. There's a lot of things. There's the real-time aspect. How are you covering exposure real-time, notifications that are coming through, etc. So I pivoted and switched that to a tool that's business intelligence. So it's just reporting.
Yeah.
You're not able to click buttons to cover exposure instantly, and let's not even get into automation, right?
Different.
No. So I want to hear, by having built that context, I want to hear iSAM's radar, you called it?
Yeah, correct.
The radar product. Tell us how it works. How does it manage risk? What does a dealer do? What does a dealer need to do? What automation is there? Let's talk about this risk management product.
So to your points, I totally agree. You look at how brokers handling risk, and then you see all the issues and all the ways to improve them, and then you want to improve them and notice there's a lot to do. And it's also changing over time. It's not this one formula where you have this one thing, what does one thing, and everyone is happy. So it's interesting that you went to the reporting side, because also on the reporting side, there is so much missing, and it takes hours. What we discussed in the beginning, it takes hours to get certain information from different sources, and you need reporting, you need information just to fulfill your regulatory requirement on one side, on a legal side, and then you actually want to know what's going on in your company.
Exactly. It's business management, right? You need to know your numbers. Yeah.
So I was in a very lucky and very comfortable position. When I joined iSAM Securities, they manage risk for themselves, or we manage risk for themselves. We already managed risk for brokers or helped brokers to manage risk for 10 plus years. So it's not new. I didn't have to start it from the scratch and come up with a strategy of, I don't know what a broker looks like. So the knowledge is there. We have a huge billion-dollar hedge fund, multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. I have quants at my disposal. I have a trading team, the best of the best at my disposal. So I can just walk over and grab 2 quants and 1 head of trading and discuss a strategy or discuss an idea. I don't think many people have this luxury. So that was one thing. Then all the experience and the work we did already in the past. So it was, the biggest task was to move this, make this scalable, to move it into a dashboard and to hand it over to the client. The difference of you helping someone or the client is able to handle something himself. So the client decides his risk appetite, the client decides how he want to handle certain clients, and I can help them, or Radar can help him to flag certain trading behaviors, summarize all the exposure, all the risk, all the trading across platforms, MT4, MT5, CTrader, into one dashboard. So we are going back to having an overview what goes on in your company. And then this trader behaved in a certain way. You want to look at this trader, and then you click a button and you have you click on the account number and you see the trading behavior. And not one day, you see the whole history, you see the markouts, you see, is this trading very sharp? How fast is he profitable? How often is he profitable? What is his exposure? What is a settled P&L, and what is his floating P&L? And when you see the whole trade behavior and the whole history of a client, plus what he was flagged for, then it helps you to make a decision on how do you want to treat this client? Does it fit your risk appetite? And then we are getting back to scalable. Certain flags and alerts are handled in a way that you can assign them, handle them later, put them on a list to review at a different time or a different team. Maybe someone else is responsible for certain trading behavior, or this is urgent, you want to handle this now, you want to look at this now. And about I think you mentioned time and how much time it takes. So if this can update sub 5 seconds. So if there's a market move, you actually see what's going on now and where's your exposure. So maybe you want to hedge your exposure before a news event, or you need to investigate a client who is placing abusive trades right now and you want to stop this right now. So this is where the tool assists brokers. And then since it can read everything from your trading platforms, we have integrated to different CRM systems. Some information is not in a trading platform. Maybe a client has multiple accounts and multiple strategies. This is in the CRM. And so going back to the days where I was in a dealing desk and talking to dealing friends now, they say, okay, I ask them, if I'm flagging an account and say this is trading behavior you want to look at, what you do then? And they say, I check the history report. I say, no, what you're checking in the history report, because this is what I then move into radar. I had 9 screens, I want to bring this down to 2. So on one side is the risk software, on the other side is your trading platform, where you monitor your 20 servers, where you monitor your thousands of accounts. So moving into 3-4 different softwares to then get the trading history and then see how did he behave the week ago, how was he on the other platform. So this all goes into the system. And back to your question, that's what I'm working on, to evolve the product on an ongoing basis. Everything is feature flagged, so I can add a new feature all the time without downtime, without taking off your risk for a restart, and yeah, this is where I'm going at.
Great. Now I want to ask I want to get practical here.
Yeah.
Okay. When you talk about abusive trading, I think another term that maybe can match that in what I've heard in the industry is toxic flow, right? So if that's what you mean, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about abusive trading, speculation, or latency arbitrage, toxic flow, right? There's, in my mind, and what I've seen in the feedback in the industry, dealers need to look at different aspects of managing the risk. Let's take an extreme scenario. Every trader that's with the broker, nobody has any intention to do any manipulation, no intention to try and break the system. It's legit flow. They want to trade. There's a risk management aspect there, because now you need to look at what the customer sentiment is, exposure on a per currency level based on the trades that have come in, etc. So there's a whole lot of maths, let's call it, behind managing that risk properly, and let's call that a very clean scenario. That's one thing. And then we also have the toxic flow, where people are doing tricks, or somehow getting the price where it's going to go from, getting the quotes from one source feed, and the source feed where they're trading is perhaps slightly delayed, and they've picked it up, and then they're sending in orders where they know obviously where it's going to go because they've got a feed that's faster here. So can you give us some, first of all, does the radar platform pick up on toxic flow? And if it does, how does it do it?
So we do not define anything as toxic, as we don't want to call clients toxic. Some have a good strategy, some using a fast feed, some behaving in a certain way, which is not in the interest of the broker. So let's refer to it as sharp flow,
okay,
or abusive trading. And yes, it picks up sharp flow and abusive trading. And how it would do this would be trading pattern or the simplest way is markout. So a markout is showing what is the price at the entry when the order was entered, and what was the price before, and what was the price after. And how did the market move. So you will see an order placed from a client, how profitable does the order came and how fast. So what you said, if someone knows where the price goes, since we have not met anyone who can actually see the future, the broker must be too slow. And you will see this simple by the client enters an order at a price and the market goes in his direction or her direction immediately, very rapidly. And that's a good indication that either someone pressed the button and was very lucky very often, or he knows something, he knows where the market goes. So to find a sharp flow or to find abusers, you would use for latency arbitrage, you can monitor markouts, and you will see that clients are very profitable very fast, very often, and that will be flagged, and you want to investigate this. And then you can decide, does it match your risk appetite? And you say, overall, he's very profitable very fast, but his risk strategy seems to be not as good, so we let everything as it is. Or you say, I want to put him on a different fee, different execution, or maybe I need to protect myself. And yeah, that would be good example for markout.
That's interesting. So you anchor off of facts. So what were the numbers before, after, when did the trade come in, and where was the market actually at that point when the trade came in, and pick up on a trend. That's smart. Okay. So I think maybe for the audience, I'm going to give a separate example.
Yep.
Not even related to the industry, but can relate in some way. And, because when you talk about market moves and whatever it is, whoever's a trader understands what we're talking about, but even somebody who is new to trading might not know what that means exactly. And so I'm going to give an example from the gaming industry. So I was involved in the gaming industry before. We were developing a roulette product.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this roulette product...
Correct me when I'm wrong, but that's kind of the most fair version of gambling, or I'm not into it, but the odds are the best one on roulette, I think.
So it depends on which roulette, right? So if you do the European roulette, has only got 1 0.
Okay.
And mathematically, the maths behind that is the return to the player is 97.2%. So what that means is, anywhere you place on the bet, if you consistently place on that single bet over an infinity amount of time, you're going to get 97.2 back from every 100 you bet.
Sounds good, besides the infinity part of money and time.
Exactly.
Good.
So that's the statistics. American roulette has got 2 zeros.
Oh,
a single zero and a double zero. So that decreases it, obviously, because if you bet on red or black and it lands on the zero, which is green, you don't win, for example. And so the roulette, I believe, is 95 point something percent, the return to the player. And that is one of the higher paying games in a casino, because you've got like some slot machines pay out 91%, 92%. Really aggressive numbers get to. Binary options was a crazy number, like 80%. So
I remember that time.
Yeah. So to my example and how it relates to, is it called front running? So you know where the quote is going, you know where the market's going to move, and you place your trade before. Is that front running?
No, I think front running you would explain with, so in a simple example, a broker who receives a big ticket and knows that these big tickets are placed now, places before the actual client, because the big ticket will move the market in a direction. So
Yeah. So you shift the market because of your volume.
No, you enter the market before you know that you will shift the market.
Okay, got it. We digress. So this example about the knowing the price before.
Yeah.
So we were building this roulette product, and the idea that was set out was to be from a live casino. So internet camera
Okay.
connected to the roulette wheel, where you could see, the croupier, I believe is the lady, spinning the roulette wheel, and in real time, you could see the feed of the roulette spin, and from your home, wherever you are, you place your bets and play in virtually, but on a real physical casino.
It's like back in the days when you place an order over the phone. Okay.
Yeah, but connected to the internet, and so the roulette wheel obviously has got sensors.
Yeah.
The wheel and the number that it landed on would send it through to the application, and then the application knows the number and whatever. Okay, one of the biggest challenges that we had was latency, right? The feed delay, and so if you could imagine somebody sitting on a mobile phone at the casino, maybe with a Bluetooth in his ear, and person sitting at home is looking at a 2-second delay, for example. The number lands, or even maybe a 5-second delay. The number lands, says 36. Person places 36 because he's getting a delayed feed. It was one of the bigger challenges we had, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And that's, I think that match is similar. You know the result before the person actually placing the bet or the trade.
Yeah.
You know where it's going to go. So I thought that was a nice comparison example.
It is, and I would not even imagine that this exists outside the industry. You're so much I'm so much in my bubble. I try to understand everything on my side, but yeah, you can learn from other industries. This thing is something which just should not exist. I mean, we live in a real world. Things travel by the speed of light or far or slower, but this should not exist, and it's dangerous. It's If someone knows, we all know, if someone knows the future, this person is unstoppable. There are a lot of funny movies about it, and I would love to, but you want to be careful. That's something that's a risk I can alert you about, but
Exactly.
it's just huge.
That, and in terms of, I guess, concluding on how did we solve that problem? Well, back then our approach was just to not allow bets the moment the ball spins. But even there, right, there's still risk, because the croupier might be involved, and she might put a slow spin on the ball, but so many things. It's an interesting industry. Okay, so back to this. How did you call that instead of toxic flow? Smart. What was the term you referred to?
So sharp flow would
yeah.
be something which is very profitable, very fast, and therefore difficult to offset and difficult to monetize. And the rest is just abuse. If someone sits on a Bluetooth headset and tells you the number, that's just not allowed.
That's cheating.
Yeah, cheating. You're
flat out cheating. Okay, and let's talk about the other side, where normal behavior, but just the broker needs to do proper risk management. Look at the orders that have come through from their diversified clients or not so diversified. Again, not even the broker can predict the future, how the markets are going to move. Right. And so there, as a participant, even though a broker accepting orders from traders, the broker in a sense is also a trader in the markets, because if you're deciding to accept that risk, means you've taken a position.
Correct. Dealing on own account.
So you've taken a decision. You've made a decision, and that the decision is you're positioning yourself in the market based off of some, if you're managing the brokerage correctly, based off of correct risk management. So how does Radar give the information that a broker needs to make these decisions? Does it just give it, or do you need the skills to know what to look for in Radar?
So Radar is not designed to advise on your trading as a broker or predict market moves. It is monitoring and alerting. So you will see your exposure, and you as head of dealing, head of risk, CEO, whoever makes the final call says, that's the exposure I'm willing to take before the next elections, or this is what I feel comfortable with, this is inside my regulations. And then on each, since you can see each client and each order and the behavior of everyone, you can decide per client how you want to treat this. Do you take the counter position? Do you offset the risk partially maybe or completely? So it will not help you to predict the market. It will help you to understand your counterparty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you also mentioned you have quants at your disposal, whatever it is. Does iSAM provide that as an outsourced, the risk management, let's call it, as an outsourced service, or is it just a tool?
So that's what we do not want to do. We do not want to advise. So that's just a tricky part. There are good advisors out there maybe, but advisory is a different animal. I did my SciSec advanced license here back in the days, and then you're allowed to give advice, and as well, there's huge responsibility and huge regulation involved to this, and it's also not scalable. How many brokers can you advise at one person? And then you build up a team, and the Radar solved this issue by the broker tells us or decides on their own what is their appetite on risk. And Radar helps to tell you that's inside your appetite or outside your appetite. And if you decide tomorrow, I had a good month, I want to have a higher risk appetite, then you go in, change the number from 1,000 to 1,500, and then you get alerted a little bit earlier or a little bit later on this one flag, for example. So no advisory, to get back to your
Makes
question.
sense. Okay. Good, Dennis. So, believe it or not, we've been speaking here for an hour almost.
Oh, I would like to add one more thing which I forgot to mention before,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
Of course.
So we said that you cannot predict the future,
Yes.
and we had a lot of discussions how dangerous latency is, or how dangerous it is if someone else is faster or knows where the market goes or knows where the ball lands. So Radar can alert you that there is something, but it cannot fix it. So the only way to fix latency abuse is to be fast. Same with your feed. If someone is directly next to the table and need to bet there, then there is no trick, no cheating. And that's the same for brokerage. I went to Australia, I talked with a few bigger brokers, and we had a lot of discussions about latency. The only way is you need to be fast. And then I went back and looked at what does latency mean in money and how much money is there actually on the table. One thing is the abuse part, what we talked about, and you know how much abuse costs you because that's what you pay the client out, or maybe not, however you behave as a broker. So if someone made $1,000 on latency abuse or $100,000, that's what it cost you on the abuser. But latency costs you money every day as a broker. So I talked about latency with brokers. I went back to my quants, which I mentioned a few times. I'm very proud of them. And my trading team, same proud there. And I asked them, so latency, can you put a number to it, a dollar value? Because everyone says you need to be fast, don't be slow, latency abuse. So I asked them to put a number to it. And they did research. They gave me some estimates, some average, and they were very careful to not me running around and telling too high numbers. But just to give you an example, to put a dollar value on it. So on a quiet market during the month, you leave around $30,000 on a table per month per billion, so per yard. On an NFP, where the market is moving much faster, I think we talked about it, when the market moves much faster, the systems are more under pressure, and there is more money, more volume. So it's around, in average, up to 100,000 per yard, which you leave on the table. So if you're a size broker of 13 yards a month, that's 10 yards. That's around 3 yards you're doing during NFP. 10 yards you do the rest of the month. You leave more than $500,000 on the table, and there's no abuse and there's no evil person. This is just what you do not monetize because you're slow, and when clients enter the market has already moved. So latency is a big thing, and
there's so many questions now that I'm going to come throwing at you here. Okay, let's start with the definition of latency. And so I'll first go with latency is obviously the time, the response time it takes to ping, or to send a signal from one device to another, and how long it takes to get a response back.
Yeah.
But it's obviously a little bit more than that, because there's processing time. When we talk about latency in the industry, there's processing time, there's a whole lot of... Let's hear your definition of define latency.
First of all, I appreciate how you explain things which I forget in between, because not everyone is doing the same task yesterday than you or I did. So I need to learn to explain what I'm talking about better. Very good. So latency is, yes, the time between two actions. How long does it take? And then if you talk about latency, there is different points where you want to measure those latency. I arrived a little bit late seeing you today. I had to come from one city to another, and there's latency to get here. So, and this depends where you measure. When did I left my hotel? When did I enter the taxi? Or when did I, checked out? So on the systems, you can measure when is the order placed on the trading system, or when it arrived on we talked about the bridge, when does it arrive on the bridge? There's time it needs to travel between the retail end client from his home PC, laptop, mobile phone, over the mobile provider, up to a data center or an access point, then maybe across the world to one of the main data centers. There it gets processed. What order did he place? Is the risk offset? Will you take the counter position as a broker? If you offset risk, you send the risk to a trusted liquidity provider, hopefully to iSAM Securities. We are processing it. We're confirming the order back to the broker confirms back to the client, ends up in the mobile, and hopefully everyone is happy with the decision they made. So the question is, where do you measure? And network latency can be just the time it needs to travel from one place to another. And then there's the system latency, which how much time does it to process? Are you in a queue waiting for your order to be processed? Is the system busy because it's underperforming, or is it old code which does just a lot of things not simultaneously, but in a row? So two funny stories to this. Back in the days when I learned about IT, before all the brokerage, different networks. I think now everything is TCP, IP, and back in the days there was some token ring, and I was explained the difference that token ring does one after the other, and loses no packages, but it takes a while because one after the other. And other networks doing things in parallel are faster, but you drop some package, you forget something. So banks were using token ring from what I've heard and learned after school. I'm not sure which part of this I remember correctly, but if you do things one after the other, it takes longer. If you do things parallel, and with newer technology, it goes faster. So, and to new and old, some technology which is used out there came out 15 years ago. Not sure if you remember what laptop you used 15 years ago or what PC you used 15 years ago. Even if you upgrade this and do all the patches and everything,
it's not. You need to upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah, and you need to reinvent and change. So what I did, I looked up in Wikipedia and checked what was 15 years around and it was like Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8. You will remember, maybe some of our audience will remember. I would not want to run my business on a Windows Vista laptop from 15 years ago, even if Windows promised me they upgrade it every month.
Yeah.
And that's just slower. So
yeah. So we have latency.
Yeah.
And then in terms of what you had described before is quantifying, because we talk about latency, which obviously involves, as you've mentioned, you've clarified, it's not just the travel time for sending requests and reaching from one PC trading terminal to the broker, and then from the broker to the trusted liquidity provider, etc. There's also the delay that it takes on the processing those orders on each of these servers and devices. So that's one thing. And let's put a number there, 100 milliseconds, right? So 100 milliseconds, it takes, generally speaking, 200 milliseconds, whatever it is, to send an order, get a confirmation, everything comes light speed, right? Comes back, order's confirmed. Okay. All good and well. It took the broker 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds to process that order. And what you've done is you've quantified that delay into numbers. So, and your quants did it between different volatility periods.
Yep.
And run us through that. So how is it different between, a period where there's not much movement, it's calm, markets are calm, versus the NFP, for example, when there's volatility? I guess there's obviously a logical answer, but dig into that detail for us.
Two things on this, two main topics. You described it totally correctly, and I, due to my history in the industry, and I've seen a lot of latency numbers. I know the average, I know the peaks, I know on which systems adding how much it takes to go around the globe, how much it takes on the trading platform, on different bridge providers. Now, I came back with the same idea from my trip, and this takes 100, this takes 200, this takes up to 500 on a 99.9th, maybe even more. That was my experience on understanding latency. I went back and told them, okay, tell me our numbers. So where are we? And the latency numbers I talked about in the past were on one system. And then we said it travels and it goes somewhere else. And they came with numbers which were 1 digit. And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. And if we execute this on our own system, then it stays in 1 digit. And I said, you get you receive an order, you get the order on the wire, you process it, you send it to an execution venue, you get the execution venue confirming it, and you put it back on the wire to the front end, to the trading platform in a 1 digit. And I said, yeah, but we can make it faster. If it's a problem, we can make it faster. And I'm like, guys, we're fine. So, and then you definitely can have arbitrage. I know there are other brokers out which are famous to be a little bit faster. So groups of abusers using certain names in the industry to take the feed as their reference feed for latency abuse. And yeah, if you're the fast one, then the worst thing is that someone uses your feed to pick off someone else. And I think that's where you want to be. But that was one part of your question. Can you remind me? I got excited.
Yeah, so it was. So how does that quantify?
How does quantify?
How do you get to the monetary value?
Yeah. So we had a few examples we discussed because I also wanted this explained from my team, and I will try to explain it for the audience as good as I can. Not a quant. So if a market moves and the order gets placed, then it depends on where you are with your price. And if you enter an order and you take the order on and the market rapidly moves in the direction of the order, you would have taken it to a way different price. And the difference between the price you are giving and the price where the market is. That's all. And in a quiet market where it goes a little bit down, a little bit up, these are cents or less, even on big order tickets. But if the market rapidly moves multiple points, then milliseconds are multiple points of price, and multiple points of price are then dollars. And if you're then very careful and you take an average and you check movements of the last 4 NFPs, and then you get to a number what they let me say out loud.
Yeah, there's a lot there, right? And obviously, the quants know these numbers. And if I were to maybe give my addition to that is, when the markets are calm, the price, as you mentioned, moves. It doesn't jump as much as it does but it's also not about the jump. It's about how many ticks are available within that time span. And so if we talk 100 milliseconds, let's take 200 milliseconds, just for example. While the markets are calm, let's say 3 ticks have made it through during that time span. And while markets are fast, it could be 20, 30, 15 ticks. Ticks means different prices.
Correct.
And so at that specific nanosecond, what price would have been granted or confirmed, rather, where the market was at, plays a role. And then I guess another number that plays a big role is you talk about 1 yard, but is that 1 yard coming from one customer, or is that 1 yard coming from 1,000 customers, and how big are those orders? Because that also counts.
Yeah. So in my example, that is across the book. As I said, average it out and taking values which are average. Yeah.
Right.
If you have one
and so
big
let's
ticket,
say that the average, it's, let's say, 100,000. in notional volume per tick, per order. And so if it is 100,000 and there are, the ticks are, there are 10 ticks while the market's volatile, which tick would have confirmed versus, if there is, if the delay is from 100 millisecond down to 1 millisecond, you got the right price, and then it could be to the favor or against the favor of the trade. It doesn't matter. It is the correct price. And I would have imagined, I believe that also your quants didn't take sentiment into account. So what direction the trade was, you got to take that out of the equation, in my opinion. You've got to put it as if it is exactly 50-50.
And this is where, interesting, I asked similar questions. And this is where the difference becomes between the NFP and acquired market. So in acquired, so it is cross multiple clients and multiple orders. And yes, there are, let's say, 1,000 orders, and there are more. But to keep it simple, let's say there are 100 orders, and maybe 43 clients going long and 57 going short in acquired market. And this is why the difference there is not as high, because it's closer to the 50-50. When you have an NFP move, no one knows, hopefully, where the market moves to, but then the market moves in one direction. We have seen so many NFPs, you and me. It starts, moves in one direction, and maybe it comes back at a certain point, but there's one strong movement. And retail clients tend to herd trade and follow this direction. So the market goes in one direction, and they say, okay, I want to jump on this train. I take my cut of this. And if they leave the market at the right time, they do profits. If they wait and the market comes back, they're not. But they are trading in the same direction. And this is where the impact comes, because the market moves in one direction, the client moves into the same direction, and then if you fill this client and you confirm the order earlier, then he's longer in his favorable direction.
Correct.
If you confirm at the right time, the right price, then he's at the right time in his direction.
Yes.
And there comes the latency. He sees the directional trade. This goes on for a certain time period. And the window, you make the window unnecessary longer by being late.
Correct. And the longer it is, especially if it is towards the favor, in the favor of the trade, and if you've got it be booked, where the price would have confirmed at a profit range of $100, for example, you close it at a profit of $170, where the client would have accepted the 100. That was what was fair at that moment in time, and that's where latency is.
The client did the same move.
Yeah.
You just took old information to pay out the client.
Correct. Latency is super important.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes. On some closing comments, I also want to mention another thing here. This is on a personal one. I remember, we've known each other for a long time. I think maybe 10 years.
Yes. If I would have need to guess 10 plus years,
yes,
it's a pleasure.
Likewise. And so I've also seen a personal transformation where 10 years ago, you were at least 20 kilos more.
Yeah.
So congratulations also on the
Thank you.
trimming up.
Thank you. I had a good friend who motivated me. We did a part together. And when you start getting in shape, and I get older, so maybe it was the last shot to get back in shape.
I think it was a good decision. So thank you very much for your time, Dennis. Let's do some closing comments here.
Yeah.
Tell us, the audience, where to find you. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was a treat.
So on LinkedIn, I guess, your profile, right? Dinos Weissert.
Yes, I'm so rarely Googling myself, but yeah, Daniel Weissert, you will find me. And people who watch your show, I will definitely link your show. I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much. I should put a bit more effort on putting links and stuff. maybe it's been done already. I don't do it. All I do in terms of this podcast is exactly this. From there, it gets posted. I don't even, I like. When I see the post come up, I like it.
Me too.
Thank you for your time, Dennis. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And it's a wrap.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Remember to hit the like button. Comment down below if you have any guests you'd like me to interview and any topic you'd like me to discuss in future episodes.